Salam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
This is George again, and this is verse by verse through the Quran. Season 2, Episode 3. We're covering Surah 2, Ayah 1 through 29 on August 18th, 2026.
Very good.
So, Surah 2, the cow, Al-Baqarah, is the longest surah in the Quran. It's also the first Madinah surah. So this was written, or this revelation was received in Muhammad's first home in Medina. The way most Muslim scholars break down the surahs are Medina or from Mecca. And I got that backwards. Mecca is where Muhammad started, and then he moved to Medina. And so this is the first of the new period, which is the Medina period. There's some important aspects of that, depending on who you talk to. One of the things that scholars have noted is that while he was in his original home in Mecca, there were very few followers. He was a very small group within some very large, harsh Arabic tribes and Jewish tribes and some Christian groups. So the revelations he was receiving was tied to the size of his following in some ways. He was a lot more kumbaya and lovey-dovey with everybody. When he got to Medina, which this is the first Medina
Surah.
Here we go again. So this is the first Medina surah. And we'll start to hear a little bit harsher voice from Muhammad in these revelations. Another thing that comes into play here is because, like I said, his earlier revelations or surahs, which we'll identify as we go through, are much more accommodating to the people of the book, the Hebrews, the Jewish people, and the Christians. But in the later ones, he was much harsher, or the revelation from God was much harsher. And what this brings in then, in how we approach these things, is a concept called abrogation, where the later revelations take precedence over the earlier ones. So we're going to find that many of the earlier ones, he was talking about embracing the people of the book. But these later ones from Medina, we find that some of them are actually advocating for the hunting down and killing of the people of the book who reject Muhammad's revelation. If you go to the comment section or in the description of this video, you'll find a link to a man named, Raymond Ibrahim. And he breaks this down much better than me. He's a true academic. So you can get a little bit more information on that to understand this whole abrogation thing and how it plays out, particularly within the Muslim community, the Islamist community that becomes more radicalized because of the later, more aggressive passages in the Quran. The verse 23, which I'll be reading all of it pretty soon here. I did a short on this, but this is where God, through Muhammad, is challenging everyone, particularly those who don't follow Muhammad, if you find a better way, a better book, a better path, bring it here to me. And if it's truthful, if it's legit, he'll listen to it. Now, I don't think the Quranic scripture is making a commitment one way or the other, but I take that as a challenge, particularly to those who would look closer at the previous revelations from Moses and from Isa, Jesus, and how, at least in the revelations in Mecca, how they were following God's dictates. So like I say, it's a good challenge to say, okay, just because we're comparing Quran and Bible doesn't mean that you're in trouble. Because by my reading of this this challenge, and there's quite a few more, we just talked about verse 23 and 24, which I'll recite pretty quick here. There's also Surah 10, Ayat 38, Surah 11, Ayat 13, Surah 17, Ayat 88, Surah 28, Ayat 49, 52, Ayat 34. And then finally, in Injil, the Gospel, Matthew 7, verse 7 and 8. I'm going to do the reading from the Quran first. And I said that's 23 and 24. If you are in doubt about what we have sent down to our servant, then bring a surah like it and call your witnesses other than God if you are truthful. If you do not do this, and you will not do it, then guard yourselves against the fire. So be careful. Whatever you do, according to the Quran, even in following the book from the previous revelations, be careful, because this has eternal consequences. And I'm going to have Margaret read Matthew 7, verse 7 and 8, and bring it to you.
Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 and 8. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened.
Thank you, Margaret. Whoever seeks will find. So in other words, God, in the Christian Injil, because Matthew was one of the writers of the gospel from Jesus Christ, this was actually what's called the Sermon on the Mount. And he says, if you seek, you will find. If you're not seeking, you're not going to find much. That's a pretty obvious statement, but it seems that we humans need to hear that. So now this is going to get a little bit long. You may want to pause at home, but I'm going to read verses 1 through 29. And here we go. Remember the Bismillah? In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate. Alif, Lam, Mim. Those are just Arabic letters. We don't know what that's about. Probably like in the Bible, Old Testament, Psalms, sometimes we have words that we don't really know what they mean. But anyway, verse 2, that is the book. There is no doubt about it. A guidance for the ones who guard themselves, who believe in the unseen and observe the prayer and contribute from what we provide them. Remember, this is God talking to Muhammad, or to us through Muhammad. And I just read the end of verse 3, ayat 3, from what we have provided them. You'll see some notes in the show notes, particularly to look into that a little closer. But that we is interesting that the Arabic word, plural word, we as a pronoun, is used. We have some similar things in the Bible, particularly in the very first book of Genesis, when it describes God talking. But anyway, get back where I'm at. All right, that was verse 4, right? Not quite yet. Oh, that was, I'm getting mixed up. That's the footnote in the Quran I'm reading. So we're still in Ayat 1. For example, the early commentary, oh shoot, I am messing. We have provided them. So now we're going into the next part of that verse 3, and who believe in what has been sent down to you, and what was sent down before you, and they are certain of the hereafter. And that's like in Surah 0, we discussed last video, the hereafter, that the Quran recognizes there is a hereafter, there is a great judgment, and they are certain of the hereafter. Ayat 5, those stand on guidance from their Lord, and those, they are the ones who prosper, the ones that listen, right? Surely those who disbelieve, it is the same for them, whether you warn them or do not warn them. So here, they will not believe. Ayat 7, God has set a seal on their hearts, and on their hearing, and on their sight there is a covering. For them there is a great punishment. So here we find that God actually hides his revelation from some who will not hear. And we're going to cover some references biblically with that too. Ayat 8, there are some people who say, we believe in God and in the last day, but they are not believers. They try to deceive God and the believers, but they only deceive themselves, though they do not realize it. In their hearts is a sickness, so God has increased their sickness. And for them there is a painful punishment, because they have lied. When it is said to them, do not foment corruption on the earth, they say, we are setting things right. Is it not a fact that they are the ones who foment corruption, though they do not realize it? When it is said to them, believe as the people believe, they say, shall we believe as the fools believe? Is it not a fact that they are the fools, but they do not know it? When they meet those who believe, Ayat 14, when they meet those who believe, they say, we believe. But when they go privately to their satans, they say, surely we are with you. We were only mocking. Surah Ayat 15, God will mock them and increase them in their insolent transgression, wandering blindly. 16, those are the ones who have purchased error with the price of guidance. Their transaction has not profited them, and they have not been rightly guided. 17, their parable is like the parable of the one who kindled a fire. When it lit up what was around him, God took away their light and left them in darkness. They do not see. Ayat 18, without hearing or speech or sight, so they do not return. 19, or it is like a cloudburst from the sky, with darkness and thunder and lightning. They put their fingers in their ears because of the thunderbolts, afraid of death. God surrounds the disbelievers. The lightning almost takes away their sight. When it flashes for them, they walk in it, but when it becomes dark over them, they stand still. If God so pleased, he could indeed take away their hearing and their sight. Surely God is powerful over everything. 21. People, serve your Lord who created you and those who were before you, so that you may guard yourselves. 22. He it is who made the earth as a couch for you, and the sky a dome, and sent down water from the sky, by means of which he produced fruits as provision for you. So do not set up rivals to God, when you know better. If you are in doubt about what we have sent down to our servant, so there God is talking, plural again, to our servant, Muhammad, then bring a surah like it. Oh, there's verse 23. Here's the challenge. If you are in doubt about what we, God, have sent down to our servant, then bring a surah like it, and call your witnesses, other than God, if you are truthful. If you're legit, if you're on the up and up, if you're truly finding a path to God, to holiness, to righteousness, bring it before God. Let him hear it. It sounds like the story of Job. We'll touch on that in a moment. But you ready to pause? If you do not do this, and you will not do it, then guard yourselves against the fire, which is prepared for the disbelievers. So this is an eternal deal about you taking up this challenge. If you're not going to follow the Quran, you better have a good plan B that you are following. And so that's part of the argument that we're evaluating as a study. The people of the book, the Bible, and the people of the Quran from Muhammad. Verse 25, give good news to those who believe and do righteous deeds, that for them there are gardens. Here we're talking about heaven, through which rivers flow. And that's almost an exact quote from the book of Revelation about the new heavens and the new earth and the city of Zion. Whenever they are provided with fruit from there as provision. And those of you that follow the Bible, there's fruit there. The tree of life is there that people will eat, and they'll live forever on that food. And they will say, this is what we were provided with before. So before is probably talking about the garden where Adam and Eve started at. They will be given similar things to eat. And there they will have pure spouses, and they will remain. Pure spouses, virgins, perpetual virgins. I think we're going to find elsewhere. I don't think it's a hadith. I think it's a Quranic verse that we'll catch up with later. Verse 26, surely God is not ashamed to strike a parable, even of a gnat or anything above it. So he can use anything to communicate his truths. As for those who believe, they know that it is the truth from their Lord. But as for those who disbelieve, they will say, what does God intend by this parable? So a parable can both illuminate something and it can hide something. We're going to find almost the exact same words from Isa in the Injil pretty soon here. He leads many astray by it and guides many by it, but he does not lead any astray by it except the wicked. Verse 27, who break the covenant of God after its ratification and sever what God has commanded to be joined. Sever what God has commanded to be joined. That almost sounds like breaking strong commitments and moral codes. Like in a lot of marriages in America, they say, let no man sever what God has put together. We're talking about when you come together with a man and a woman. From what God has commanded to be joined, and foment corruption on the earth. They are the losers, eternal losers. How can you disbelieve in God when you were once dead and he gave you life? This is a spiritual argument. What is wrong with you people? How can you not believe in the God who's given you your very life? I'm losing my place. Then he causes you to die. then he gives you life again. And then to him you are returned. So there's a cycle going on here. He it is who created for you what is on the earth, all of it. Then he mounted upward to the sky and fashioned them as 7 heavens. He has knowledge of everything. And that's the end of Ayah 29. Would you please pause the video? So now we're getting into the comparison verse by verse. The first verse I'd like you to look at, and I'll read it again. Ayah 3. Who guard themselves, who believe in the unseen, and observe the prayer and contribute from what we have provided them. So this is God talking about those of you who have embraced the monotheistic faith. We who believe. So this is talking about faith and belief. And there's a very similar verse in the New Testament called Hebrews, Surah 11, verse 1. Margaret, would you please?
Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen.
Things not seen. So that's a faith system. That's a belief system. We don't see God yet. We don't see heaven yet, but we believe anyway, and we trust. So that's pretty much the same in both Quran and the Bible. And where am I at now? Quran, Surah 2, Ayat 7. Let's see here. God has set a seal on their hearts, and on their hearing, and on their sight there is a covering. For them there is a great punishment. So, God has actually set a limit to what they can receive. And there's a similar verse in the Old Testament and the New. So we're going to do Isaiah 6, verse 9 and 10.
Isaiah 6, starting with verse 9. And he said, Go and say to this people, keep on hearing, but do not understand. Keep on seeing, but do not perceive. Make the heart of this people dull, and their ears heavy, and blind their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their hearts, and turn and be healed.
So that's a cry to his people, who were the Hebrews at that time, that they're not getting it. They're missing out on his divine freedom and salvation for the entire people of Israel. And in the New Testament, in Injil, we have Romans chapter 11, verses 7 and 8.
In Romans chapter 11, verse 7, what then? Israel failed to obtain what it was seeking. The elect obtained it, but the rest were hardened. And 8 says, as it is written, God gave them a spirit of stupor, eyes that would not see and ears that would not hear, down to this very day.
Stupor. What does stupor mean?
Kind of a sickness of just a fog, I think. Even a drunkenness.
Kind of like possibly. A Homer Simpson, duh.
I guess so.
Okay. So next, we're going to look at Surah 2, Ayat 10. In their hearts is a sickness, so God has increased their sickness. We're just kind of following right on what the Bible had. And for them, there is a painful punishment because they have lied, either to themselves or to each other, about the very nature of God. Oh, I didn't mark this one. I'm not going to, if you go in the show notes, you'll find some of these. But this isn't one of the ones I wanted to touch on. That's about hypocrisy and spiritual decay. Oh, yes, there is one. Zechariah 7:11. That's going to be way towards the end, Margaret, of the Old Testament. Zechariah chapter 7, verse 11 and 12.
But they refused to pay attention and turned a stubborn shoulder and stopped their ears that they might not hear. Also 12.
Yes.
They made their hearts diamond hard, lest they should hear the law and the words that the Lord of hosts had sent by his Spirit through the former prophets.
So they set their ears hard. I hope those of you that are listening do not have that going on in yourselves, that you're still open and able to hear. In Romans 1:28, Margaret.
Romans 1:28 says, and since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not be done.
So that means everything's messed up bad. I'm going to read Surah 2, Ayah 10 again. We just heard in Romans, a debased mind. Verse 10 in the Quran. In their hearts is a sickness, so God has increased their sickness. And for them, there is a painful punishment because they have lied. So they're ignoring the truth that's given to them. God says he's given it to everybody, to any man who would open his eyes or open his heart to hear. All right. Do we have... Yes, now we're going to be talking about submission to God. Ayah 21. People, serve your Lord, who created you and those who were before you, so that you may guard yourselves. This is a plea to get your act together. Listen to these words of salvation, of righteousness, calling you back to the garden, back to heaven itself. So Deuteronomy chapter 6, 4, and 5 is going to mimic this. If not, I think Deuteronomy was well before.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might.
And then Matthew, Surah 22, Ayah 36 through 40. So this is Isa speaking again about this, the very same verses that came from Deuteronomy, from Moses. 36 through 40.
So his disciples said, Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law? And he, Isa, said to him, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and first commandment.
And through 40?
Excuse me. And a second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets.
So Isa, Jesus, restated or repurposed that most loved, most famous law from the Old Testament, from Moses, called the Shema, because that's actually the Hebrew word, Shema Israel. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, monotheism. And you will love the Lord with all of your heart, all of your mind, all of your soul, and all of your strength. And Jesus reiterated it, and then he upped the ante one, and also each other. So the The Quran talks about submission and obedience. I'm thinking that the Bible phraseology of love and submit is a stronger, a better path, or at least a better wording of our relationship with God. One who submits may not do it in love, may do it begrudgingly. All right, I'll do what you want.
Or out of fear.
Or out of fear, yeah. So there's a little bit of difference there. Nuanced, but there is a difference. And then finally, almost to the very end of what we were reading, Ayah 28, his admonition, his calling to you one last time. How can you disbelieve in God when you were dead, but he gave you life? You, before you came to this earth, you were nothing. You were maybe a thought in your mother's mind, but you were not alive. And then he gave you life. Then he causes you to die again. So he's got the beginning of your life to the end of your life. So that's once again, reminding people to think about it. People, think about it. This is the real reality. This isn't your happy-go-lucky life. I'm on a roll. I'm comfortable. I'm happy. I've got plenty of food. I like the music. No, there's a bigger reality here of the whole story of your life. Before you were alive, when you came to life, when you died, and there'd be another chapter yet of when he gives you life again to come to that final judgment, right? So Ecclesiastes 12:7, Margaret, this is Old Testament. This is from Solomon, the son of David.
And the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it.
So we're both singing the same song. I'm going to read verse 7 again, if I can find it. God has set a seal on their hearts, and on their hearing, and on their sight there is a covering. For them there is great punishment. So sealing the hearts is, I don't know how to say, it's kind of a dilemma that Christian apologists have some trouble with. Because basically it's saying is God has sealed the unbelievers' hearts. You can talk to him all day long. You can threaten him with death. But he doesn't convert, or he does a false conversion to submitting to God. But some Christian apologists have some problems with that. But truthfully, now we're getting into what's, instead of apologetics, we're into polemics. We have a group within Christianity called Calvinism or Reformed theology that teaches that God predetermines who will be saved. So, yes, there's some differences of opinion, and possibly even within Islam. I don't know that much about Islam, but some people will take exception to the Quran saying God sealed their hearts. God predetermined not everybody's going to listen. So some Christians are going to take issue with that. But then you can just remind them that, hey, we have some of the same problems agreeing with things. You got any thoughts up this far, Margaret?
No, it sounded like a very exciting comparison.
Okay, that takes us up through 29. Verse 30, the whole setting is going to switch, the whole narrative. We're going to go into the historic narrative of Adam and Eve, of Noah and the ark, of Moses. And we're going to hear these are going to be some disagreements now, strong disagreements on the historic narrative storyline of the people, both of the book and of the Quran. They're going to, you'll see soon enough. This is kind of like a spoiler alert. As we go into the next verses, some of you will read ahead, some of you already have, that there's a lot of back channel information. What's going on in heaven? What the angels are saying about what's going on earth and God's creating of things. So there's a lot of back information that the historical accuracy we that follow the Bible would call into question. But we have a book called the Book of Job that gives an awful lot of back channel information, behind the scenes, if you will, of what was happening with Satan and God, talking about Job. So I'm open to getting some of this back channel information from Muhammad. I'm not totally closed off. I'm a little bit skeptical, but we'll see how it comes. And remember, there's a lot of notes that you'll want to check into, and even some linked videos in the show notes. So remember to go to the comment section, and first of all, comment, share. We've got easily 2 or 3 years worth of information to cover together. So the sooner you share what's working, what isn't, what you find interesting, what you don't, what you think would work better, or what information I misidentified that you know better about, put them in the comments. We listen and we will respond. So I guess that's about it. Oh, one last thing. We are praying for a Middle East country this week, the country of Turkey. Our next video, I'll have some specific things to pray for Turkey. Maybe you could add in the comment some of the problems that Turkey is having right now. Although I think they pronounce it Turkey now. Instead of Turkey, it's Turkey. But let's just go to God in prayer right now. God, Allah, we ask that you look out for the people of Turkey. Help their leadership, Erdogan. Remember the greatness that God gave to Turkey during the reign, or the first reign of the modern father, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. Help them to reopen their eyes to you, God, and help us to reach them with our verse by verse through the Quran. Bless them all, particularly as war looms closer and closer with Iran. And we trust that your will be done within Turkey and the entire Middle East. And we thank you and we bless you. And separately, I ask this, not Bismillah, but Bisma Isa. Amen. Amen?
Amen.
Okay. God bless. Bye-bye.